Welcome to Transformation Heroes by Feedia, a series dedicated to CX professionals. Hello and welcome to another episode of Transformation Heroes. I'm Carlos and I'm joined with François. Hello, François.
Hello, Carlos. Good to be back.
Good to see you as always. Right, so today we are going to be talking about competitive intelligence, more specifically what it is and how it can be used by CX teams. So right off the bat, I'd love for you just to walk me through a little bit of what competitive intelligence is and how it can help from a customer experience perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the recent episodes, we've talked a lot about the internal data that you have inside your organization. And whenever you're looking to transform, to improve, to make the overall organization better, there's a lot inside that you can do. But competitive intelligence is just about listening to what your competitors are doing. It doesn't have to be spying on them. It doesn't have to be like, hey, I'm going to go at your store and see how it's being done there. That's not really the point. The point is like making sure that, you listen in a way that it's that helps you improve, that gives you ideas, that also identify weaknesses on which you can focus. And if you have a list of 10 improvements, for example, and you know that your customers' weaknesses are the one or two, at least you know that the decision you're going to make is going to have a pretty good business impact for you.
François, you disappoint me. I really thought this was going to be a show on just covering espionage and how to do the best Bond tricks.
No, not yet, Carlos. Maybe one day version of the platform in a couple of years, but we're not there yet. No, it's just, you have a lot of information that is available online. This information is mostly textual information, used to be very complex, very time-consuming to retrieve, to manage this information. But thanks to AI, it's no longer the case, and therefore it opens new possibilities.
And so, why is it important for CX teams specifically?
Basically, even if you're in marketing and your job is to improve customer experience or to understand what's going on in your customer journey, you might not have the customer experience title. But at the end of the day, for anyone that's looking to improve, to identify weaknesses in the process, to identify new opportunities for the company to grow, it can be new product, can be new services. You don't want to follow and to do what the competition is doing, but you want to be aware of that. Yeah. And the thing is, when you have lots of competitors and when you're very busy, it's very time consuming to do all of that. And so if you are an individual and that you know what's going on inside, but you also know what's going on outside, and then when you're making a decision in terms of where to focus the effort in terms of customer experience improvements, and you can say, I do have information also about what the competitors are doing, where they're very good and where they're very bad. And then I can align this with business results. And Transformation Heroes is about people that are looking to transform, right? And the thing is, transformation goes much faster if you can align it with business results. And there you go.
I'm really keen to understand a little bit more about how it can be used as a tool to reduce the impact of, for example, teams creating silos. So, you've mentioned the CX team and marketing team, and especially frontline teams are able to use this as a massive advantage. However, there is a risk, as always, of being very silo driven, working in your team at targets. How, from your point of view, do you think we can achieve a 360-degree view of the market and of customers?
Yeah, and that's why the CX ads are the right people to be handling this, in our opinion, is simply because they are in touch with product, they're in touch with support, the customer support, they're in touch with the with the CEO, with the board of directors. They basically are in the middle, they are horizontal in the organization, and therefore it's easier for them to be like, oh, product, you're working on this. By the way, our competitors are already doing it. By the way, we have a new opportunity. And also it solves a problem from the customer support team, which have X tickets, which creates X detractors every single month. And therefore, having this global vision and aligning every single team with not only the internal customer feedback, the internal customer tickets data, but also what competitors are doing, and at least what people are saying about this, which you can capture very easily and analyze very easily, makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so I'd love to dive into a little bit more detail on the implementation side of things. We've kind of talked about what it means in general terms. Now I want to focus on specific topics of competitor intelligence. So the first one of note is e-reputation monitoring. From your point of view, what are some of the best practices for monitoring competitors' e-reputation? How can CX teams leverage that?
If we zoom out, like when it comes to customer experience, like most of the data you can access to is your reputation. Like that's most of it is there because you don't have access to your competitors like tickets, you don't have access to your competitors like survey data. So the only thing you can focus on is what you find online and what is the public domain, basically. And there are a lot of sources which are very interesting, which we recommend, which you can access very quickly. Some of them are Trustpilot, for example. It's a very good one. Then you're going to have like Google Places as well, where like there are APIs. If you target a specific brand, you can capture like some of their feedback and you can export them. And two things, you'll find quantitative insight and you'll find like qualitative ones. In the last couple of years, like companies have been very, very good to focus on, like, oh, my competitors is basically doing 4.5 on Google reviews. I'm doing 4.7, I'm better. And now with AI, what we see a lot is this data can also be digested, analyzed, at a very cheap price, and therefore you can identify weaknesses, opportunities in your competitors' textual feedback. And so you have a reputation, and the other one that you also have, Carlos, is social networks, where you can't access the direct messages between your competitors and the clients, but you can identify mentions, like these kind of things, can also be incorporated and integrated as an input.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's so obviously a theme when it comes to the conversations we have with AI being very cost effective at analyzing that data and being able to produce meaningful themes as well, which is really important.
Yeah, and the cost is going down at a pretty fast rate. And what it means is, like you can have more and more sources, and at the end of the day, you can make sense of it in your own context. And therefore, again, like if you're identifying improvements in your customer journey, you can then benchmark it with your competitors to make sure that you are going to hit 100% exactly at the right spot. And again, if you develop that new product feature or you tell your product team, hey, you guys should focus on that. But at the end of the day, like your competitors have been doing this for 6 months and you were just not aware of it versus another improvement, which, like no one is doing and it's a pain point and your competitors are not doing, and it's a pain point for your competitors' customers. Well, here you go. Like that's going to unlock more business value and therefore you're also going to transform a lot faster.
Now, you mentioned benchmarking. So I thought it'd be a lovely topic to kind of expand on. Are there any key elements from your point of view where CX teams can focus on, because obviously it can feel a little bit overwhelming when you're just like benchmark your competitors?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not something you want to do like on a yearly basis. Because before, like technology would let us do that fairly at an affordable price and, like it with high accuracy. CX team used to go talk to consultant and be like, hey, let's do market research on that specific subject, what the market is doing and so on. But now over the last couple of years, like the amount of customer feedback available online on the e-reputation we've mentioned, the social networks, but also sometimes very specialized review websites. So for example, for the housing market, for the car industry, like there are very specific websites and platforms. We have some use cases with, for example, Amazon reviews. You have like so much content in there, and that content was not available like a couple of years ago. So if you were to do that 10 years ago, that would be a little bit less fun because you would have to go through a market research and you would have to do this like every year or every 3 years or every couple of months. Whereas like right now you can do this on a weekly basis and have very accurate information for a very cheap price. And that is a game changer. And so to get back to your question, Carlos, so when it comes to benchmarking, you don't want to benchmark only on the rating, the scores. Like this is very easy to do. This is good for the ego, but the real value is in the unstructured customer feedback, as known as, like the verbatim, the Google review comments, and being able to dig into this information and to highlight trends, to highlight pain point, weaknesses, opportunities. Like this is where the value is.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So rather than just getting a lot of information, you're also looking at the themes that are developing from your competitors.
Yeah, exactly. The trends. That's what the most important.
Exactly. Seeing what the types of trends are that they're getting. How does that compare to what you're seeing? Very much so. If you're seeing an increase or decrease on your side, that's a very good indicator. Now, with competitive intelligence, it's kind of difficult to maybe visualize at times. Sometimes you need to report this to your team or to higher ups, and it's important to be very succinct. How do you envision, being able to be very visual in order to communicate across that those areas need to be taken action on?
So you want to make the reports available as many people as possible in your organization. It doesn't have to be top secret information that you just report to the CEO, to the board of director like once a year. Like you want to be able to give product team, for example, a very good report that shows them where the competitors are good in terms of product, where are the weaknesses, so they can help them take the best action possible in regards to making improvement that are going to not only improve the customer experience, but improve the business as well. So you want these reports to be per team, basically. Like you don't want just one report, you want to report per team because the topics are going to be different. You want to make these reports as often as possible, not on a daily basis neither, but like on a weekly or on a monthly basis. That's much better. Like you don't want to do that every single year, except if you're on a very slow moving market. But in most markets, like a monthly one would be very good. And for example, the communication, the marketing team, like they're going to look at different topics, then the product, then the customer support, and so on. So that's one thing. Then there is also like what you report inside these reports. And what's very interesting and what we recommend a lot is being able to have this comparison where you can, like have in one place basically what we're doing, what they're doing, where we're very good, where they're very good, where we're very bad, where they're very bad, based on your product, customer support, marketing, operations. And at the end of the day, to get back to the first point, you don't really want to follow like the rating scores and so on. That's interesting, but there's not so much value in there. You want to follow topics and trends and how they evolve over time.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of clamor for that from CX teams and just companies in general, because a lot of the time that level of intelligence was gatekept by massive organizations offering huge consultancy fees, or just the platforms themselves being, pricing a lot of companies out the market. So it's really great that, that information is now being democratized so other companies can start using it and developing action plans essentially.
Yeah. And it used to be, like let's pay people that are going to go through our competitors to tell us how it's going, like to pay mystery shoppers, like that kind of stuff. And right now, like, again, like Google reviews does a pretty, like it does it very well. Like you already have this information that's available like today, and you have the technology to make the best out of it. Like again, today, not in 10 days, not in 10 years, like today.
Yeah. And so if I were, a new person in the CX team and the team is kind of new to the company itself, what sort of advice would you give me in terms of beginning my journey in leveraging competitor intelligence?
First of all, identify the competitors, which are the most important to you. Identify the internal needs, again, based on what you see inside and what you measure inside. If you were to measure the customer experience from the product, from the customer support, from the delivery, from like even third parties, accounting, like basically throughout the customer journey, whenever they interact, like identify the touch point or the moment, the event in that customer journey where there is room for improvements or where you want to be the absolute best. And then once you have this identified plus the competitors, then you can make very precise queries to say, like, for example, onboarding, we know we have a pain point. Let's get ideas, or let's see if it's also a weakness from our competitors or if it's a strong point. And if it's a strong point and it's a weakness on your side, like you guys need to focus on this. But then if you've identified weaknesses on your competitors, and that's also something where you want to improve. Like again, like let's focus on this because it's going to have like massive business results. So making sure that competitors are mapped, that the customer journey is mapped, and then identifying the relationship between them so you can focus on the points which are going to deliver the most business value, and then let technology do the work. Like you should not do that by yourself, spending like hours of reading like hundreds of verbatims. Let's say I do that. It does very well.
Yeah. Very succinctly put. Thank you, François. Right. So if I were to wrap up a little bit of what we've talked about today, competitive intelligence is something that CX teams can use in order to bridge the gap and almost like be the middle ground for other teams like support and like product. The idea is to improve and identify weaknesses, and we can do that in a number of ways. So e-reputation is great because it's available. It's data that's available for you to access. You can use companies like Google Places, Trustpilot, and other areas. Thanks to AI, you can also digest a lot of qualitative feedback at a very cost-effective rate. And the other aspect as well is being able to use social media in terms of mentions on all the various platforms to try and gather information from that as well. When it comes to benchmarking your competitors directly, it's very traditionally, it was something that market research companies were doing with consultants. It was very costly, and it was also something that was done, maybe once a year, and it would take a lot of time to produce the report from. And now we're able to highlight trends. We're able to use topic analysis to see what sort of areas our competitors are having issues with and being able to benchmark that. And thanks to new platforms now that are able to democratize this information for a lot of companies, we're able to produce reports that are visual, where you can take action because you can see your company's trends here and you can see your competitors' trends and you can say, okay, well, there's positive actions we can take from looking at the two together.
Yeah, and Cost, I would like to point out a last element on this,
Please.
which there is a difference between B2C and B2B. So if you're CX in the marketing, in the customer intelligence team in B2B, you might be like, I don't have that much reviews because it's like social networks being a very good example. You'll find a lot more of this when you're doing B2C. And I think the use cases that both of us will have in mind, most of them are B2C. But there are two things here which are interesting and I think important as well. The first one is like sometimes you can access the B2B2C, so the end clients, like feedback is sometimes available online. So again, we can take we can take, for example, like logistic. Most logistic companies are B2B, but at the end of the day, you can find online lots of reviews about like the final transport, like the person is going to deliver, which is for you, it's a partner, it's a like B2B clients, but their clients leave reviews to your clients. And therefore you can access, and like their feedback. And also you can identify which one of these feedback also mentioned you as well. So basically like going through the end of the journey towards the end customer is very interesting. And then I think the second point is also, we've mentioned e-reputation. There is employee brand as well. You have like a lot of internal reviews, for example, regarding Glassdoor, regarding Indeed, which also tell you a lot about the business itself. And that's interesting to also to capture that information because you can capture what doesn't work as well, where there is room for improvements, where the excellence. And while it might sound more like a employee experience title, sometimes there's a lot about like the end customer and the product as well in this content.
Yeah, and I mean, the HR use cases as well are developing nearly as rapidly as CX, I would say, in terms of...
It's a competitive market as well, right? Like, so you want to...
Employee experience, like it's huge. Absolutely. Yeah, great. Anything else that you wanted to... That was it. Great. Well, thanks again, François, for your time as always, and see you in the next one.
Thank you, Carlos. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.